Good afternoon, and well, actually, no, it's good morning on the East Coast. How's everyone doing this morning? Hope you're off to a great morning. Welcome, and we appreciate you spending some time with us today. We're going to go ahead and kick off now and uh, dig right in here about unifying endpoint management with Workspace ONE. Let me get the camera turned on. I'll introduce myself. I hope you're off to a great day. I'm definitely having a good one myself. So appreciate you spending some time with us here at XenTegra. So first up today, what's our agenda? We'll take a few minutes, cover off who is XenTegra if you don't know us. Um, in terms of Workspace ONE, we'll talk a little bit about Broadcom and the VMware merger. How does that acquisition affect you? How does it affect Workspace ONE? And then we'll spend most of our time today talking about Workspace ONE UEM. You should also have an email from me for today's workshop. We do have the ability for you to do some hands-on using VMware's hands-on labs. So the link to the hands-on labs along with instructions should be sitting in your inbox, and that'll get you started if you want to take a look at that while we're getting started here. So first up, who is XenTegra? Who are we as a company? What are we as a partner? You know, first and foremost, we're a value-added reseller, and we really take that value-added part to heart. We focus very, very heavily on adding value, both for our vendor partners and our customer partners. Like many other resellers, we can certainly sell you what you need. We work with all sorts of different companies, and so we can meet those needs. But we really do try to give back in a number of different ways. We try to give back for free education like today's workshop, a number of different free micro assessments. You see that here on the bottom of the slide. We've got complimentary 4-hour virtual assessments for your end user compute networking environments, across many of the different technologies that you see at the bottom of the page that we focus on. One that I'll call out, have you ever had a security micro assessment for your ServiceNow or Salesforce environment? We do those. And so it may be something that is of value. It's a great way to get to know us and our organization. Um, it's completely complimentary. It is not any sort of obligation, but you can see who we are. In addition to being a reseller, we do a number of different services. We are a strategic consulting partner for many of our customers. What does that mean? We can provide guidance and implementation services on a project basis or on an ad hoc basis. We also have something we call a scheduled engagement where you get access to one of our consultants and their expertise on a consistent basis. So a certain number of hours or days per month, and you get to work with the same person each time you have one of those engagements. So they get to know you and your organization very deeply. And then we, of course, have managed services as well. So for that next step, we like to think of our managed services as a co-managed service where we work with and we want to work with internal IT departments to make you successful. As a company, we do focus on end user compute and cloud computing, but there's a lot more to us today. We've got divisions that cover all of the normal subjects, as well as things like modern apps, ServiceNow, and Salesforce. So networking, security, infrastructure, as well as EUC, we cover a lot of those things today. As a company, our founder says, we were born out of the need for customer enablement and true partnership. So we really try to live up to that every day. We wanted to be a different kind of reseller, one that would invest back into the community and into our customers. And so we try to live that out in a number of different ways. As we talked about, we focus in on digital workspace, digital services, cloud solutions. We've got a number of different advisory type solutions that we offer to our customers. And of course, we can help you with your product purchases and your product renewals. This is a select few of our partners. Across the top are our focus partners, and then some of our others. We've got a number of different folks we can work with. And even if you don't see the logo, there's a good chance. I think we're up to 300 transactional partners, but we have about 80 that we focus on. And what makes that 80 different is we run those products in our organization. It's part of our day-to-day where we're utilizing these solutions. And so we know them deeply. We have the expertise, we have the flight time running these. So it gives us a different perspective when we're working with our customers. One of the things I will point out here is as we talk about professional consulting services, we have the flexibility to make it on your terms. If you want it on-prem, if you want it remote to save costs, if you want it as a block of hours or a fixed cost, we can do all of those different things. So it's really around aligning to your needs and to what's going to make you successful. Our customer success department is also really important in making you successful. We can help with product renewals, health checks, and just overall working with you and your organization on your strategy, moving things forward. As I said, the value add's important to us. So our complimentary assessments, we lead with those. We lead with educational webinars and workshops like today. Today we will actually have some hands-on experience. So this falls in that hands-on workshop. But we also do shorter hourly workshops all throughout the month as well. So I encourage you to look for those. And they're more of a lunch and learn type thing, shorter and quick. We also do, I think we're up to 15 different podcasts on different technologies now. All those different focus technologies that you see, we have a podcast about. So it's an easy way for you to listen on the go, maybe while you're working out, and also get a little bit of more information. One of my favorite programs that we do as a value add is our conference passes. So I know as a systems administrator years ago, it was sometimes hard getting to industry events. Well, we want to help with that. And so we have heavily discounted conference passes. And Basically, the idea is get you to events, make you allow you to have the opportunity to listen and learn from other industry professionals. Also, get to meet new technology providers on the show floors. These are great industry events for you to be able to learn and help move your organization forward. And so we want to help you in getting to those industry events. And if that's not enough, we also would love to give one of our customers a dream vacation this year. So we're doing a Work Has No Boundaries giveaway, and this year we're giving a Hawaiian adventure vacation, and it's pretty easy to qualify. You can find out more at workhasnoboundaries.com. There's a number of different ways to get qualified, and you can get qualified more than once, but check it out, workhasnoboundaries.com. Dream vacation for you and a guest, up to, I think, a $10,000 value. So we'd love to be able to host you and hopefully make you that lucky winner for our Hawaiian adventure giveaway. And that's XenTegra. Hopefully you see that we're a fairly friendly, value-added reseller, really focused on adding value to the world and to our customers. So with that, I am going to change gears just a little bit. Let's start talking a little bit about Broadcom, VMware, and EUC. Yeah, this is a loaded topic because there's so much change going on in the industry. Let's talk through a little bit of what has changed. Let's talk through a bit of what's coming, what's going to affect the EUC market here, and particularly the Workspace ONE portfolio that we're talking about today. So if we roll back to end of last year, VMware had a pretty broad portfolio. They were focused on cloud and edge, anywhere workspace, cloud management, security and networking, and the desktop hypervisor. And Broadcom and VMware had been in merger talks for over a year, working through compliance throughout all the different regulatory hurdles, countries, and they finally came together and officially merged on November 22nd, 2023. So at that point, Broadcom took control of VMware and started making changes, started putting their stamp onto VMware as a company. One of the first things that they did is they announced the intent to divest the EUC unit, which includes Workspace ONE, along with the Carbon Black security unit. That was on December 8th. And then just a few weeks ago, on February 27th, we also heard an announcement from EUC Division that they were being acquired by a venture capital company called KKR. KKR is pretty well known in the industry. They own lots and lots of companies. And so the EUC Division will become its own standalone company as part of KKR sometime in the near future. For now, they are still part of VMware. Our friends over in the EUC Division are continuing to operate almost independently of the rest of VMware. They have a lot of autonomy. The leadership from KKR has also announced that the current leadership of the EUC Division will stay in place. And so that actually brings some stability. The same business unit and leaders who have currently been leading strategy and who have currently been deciding what will happen with the products and their roadmaps will still be in charge after the acquisition. So what does that mean, and what are those products that we're talking about? Well, EUC by Broadcom, as it's currently known, is the division that is being sold off to KKR. It includes three major products. It's Horizon or Horizon Cloud. It's Workspace ONE Access, which is the identity management product inside of Workspace ONE, and then Workspace ONE Unified Endpoint Management, or UEM. And really today, we're going to focus on the UEM product for endpoint management, but I did want to give you a level set and a little bit of what's going on in the industry so that you can feel certain about the product and what we're talking about here. So let's dig in a little bit more. I will point out today's workshop, we're going to continue to see the VMware branding in all of the guides and slides that we go through today. Again, EUC is still owned by Broadcom. We haven't officially gotten a new name or a new company and things like that. So we're going to use the VMware branding for today, but at some point in the near future, we do expect this to change. So a little bit of housekeeping too at this point. As I'm rolling through education and stuff, feel free to drop in questions into the Q&A feature here in Zoom or into the chat, and I will answer those live. I will be glad to pause and make this conversational. And ask questions. I encourage that because I want you to get the most out of today's session. All right, so the main event, unifying endpoint management with Workspace ONE. When we talk about endpoint management, there was a time that we really focused just on mobile devices, right? The first iteration of endpoint management really had to do with iPhones and Android. And it was a new way of managing endpoints. And it brought a over-the-air experience where we could push policies, we could push controls, and all of that was integrated with the endpoint. Before that, the traditional way was Active Directory and your machine on a domain, and very traditional in the sense that it was an on-prem focused solution, and our mobile devices, our smartphones really started to change that. So today, Workspace ONE UEM modernizes that endpoint management strategy. So now our laptops, our desktop operating systems, Windows, Windows 10, Windows 11, our Linux operating systems, our macOS, along with all the specialty operating systems like ruggedized or handhelds, watches, and things like that, they're all capable of management through this modern way. So the introduction of the mobile device management has unlocked the ability to now do it across all sorts of platforms, all sorts of devices, and in any use case. So as we talk about use cases, you have a lot of organizations where they have a bring your own device, particularly around mobile phones. And so they need a platform that can do BYO. They also probably have a certain number of corporate-owned devices. Maybe it's kiosks or iPads in a clinical setting, or maybe it's devices for check-in and for getting into a facility. And sometimes it's purpose-built. I think of inventory and I think of supply chain, certainly in shipping and things like that. You've got these handheld scanners and printers and things like that that also need to be managed. So Workspace ONE UEM is going to give you a unified management interface, one place to go where you can handle all of those different use cases. So it's flexible enough to give you the bring your own, the corporate owned, and the purpose-built management in a single product, in a single platform. And so that's really important. Now, how does that actually work? What is enabling that? So modern UEM is going to be for any device anywhere. It's going to be delivered over a cloud-native multi-tenant architecture. It's going to give you the ability to start to automate some things and to also bring in some analytics. The biggest thing is also integrating modern platform services. So when you think about modern platform services, think about your app stores. And so when we talk about mobile device management kind of being the place where this grew out of, you also think about the app stores. So you've got the Google Play or you've got the Apple App Store. And so being able to integrate your device management with those, with their upgrade and lifecycle of the applications is also really important. So as we look at modern UEM, we started off in iOS and Android. So best-in-class iOS support. There's integration with Apple Business Manager. Why is that important? Well, Business Manager is that onboarding experience. So out of the box, it allows you to get your iOS devices associated with your UEM tenant. And so you can start to push policy even before the device is in a user's hand, just by that integration from the factory with Apple Business Manager. With Android, you've also got deep support for Android specialty distributions like Samsung Knox, as well as some of the standard APIs on the Android side of the house. From a desktop standpoint, Windows, Mac, Chrome OS, all managed from the same place. And just like an outgrowth of iOS, you've got Apple Business Manager support for your Macs, as well as the ability to do self-enrollment in the MDN. Windows has cloud native onboarding. This would be the same way that Microsoft Intune is managing your Windows machines. So it's that modern management approach based on the MDM type methods of managing policy and updates, software and security. And then from the Internet of Things, non-traditional things like ruggedized endpoints, kiosks, sleds, all of those can also be managed by Workspace ONE. So again, one platform, any use case, any OS, and any device. Now the cloud native piece of it, let's take a look at the workflow. So it supports, again, all of our different major operating systems, but onboarding moves from weeks to minutes, doing so by an out-of-the-box experience that just works. So I've got a good friend who works in VMware, and he likes to tell the story of his first onboarding. So his first day at VMware, he didn't have a laptop. For whatever reason, UPS or FedEx did not get his laptop delivered on time. So his IT department at VMware sent him a link. He was able to log in to a remote Horizon environment, get everything set up on day one and start working. He was able to do all of his onboarding and things like that through a VDI environment. And then once he signed in with his username and password, he was able to enroll in all of their security practices and things like that. Well, day 2 or 3 rolls around, and his laptop that was missing on day 1 showed up. And he's like, okay, well, let's get this and let's get started. So he logs in with the same username and password. And what do you know? All of his settings from his Horizon environment have magically transferred down to his new device. And within just about 15 or 20 minutes, his brand new pristine machine is fully configured and ready to go. Now, granted, there's still some things installing in the background, but he's got access to all of his files, the same shortcuts and things he had set up in Horizon, and he started working within 30 minutes of the arrival and startup of his new device. Now, being a good manager, when he talked to his manager, he ordered him a Mac as well. So they didn't know what happened to this Windows machine that showed up on day 3, but his Mac showed up on day 6. And so that next Monday, he pulls the Mac out of the box and he goes, well, you know, I kind of enjoyed working on that a lot better, but it's probably going to be a lot of friction for me to get it set up and ready to go. So he pulls the Mac out of the box. It's got the Workspace ONE client already loaded on it. He logs in, and within 30 minutes, all of his settings, all of his applications, and all of his data have transferred onto that machine. 3 completely different use cases, 3 completely different form factors, same experience, and it's a positive experience within minutes. That's the power of modern management. You don't have to go through imaging. You take the out-of-the-box operating system as it comes from the factory. You layer on Workspace ONE as a client. It's automatically associated with your user's identity. And then that pushes all of the policy and settings down to the machine. So the onboarding experience becomes a much more frictionless activity. Your users get a single point of reference where they're able to launch all of their applications, no matter if they're remote on a bring your own device, if they're on a company issued Windows machine or a company issued Mac. It's the same experience and it's a positive experience. Second part of it is after onboarding, that configuration, that desired state is very important. I know that we're all in an industry with lots of different compliance rules, and being able to demonstrate the fact that we are patching, we are upgrading, we are managing our devices and keeping them as secure as possible, that's really important. And so Workspace ONE works in a number of different ways to give you the ability to push that configuration, remediate situations, monitor for it, and script to ensure that you're keeping that desired configuration on the endpoint. Patching is another huge part of it. So modern management uses the cloud, leverages the cloud so that you're not required to be on a secure internal private network. It uses public methods to distribute your software with granular control. There are delivery optimizations for different offices and branches where you can share updates amongst endpoints. And most importantly, it's got strong analytics and automation so that you can know and feel good that you're actually getting your desired OS upgrades. So this changes the way that you do your OS updates, pushing it through a centralized console and giving you the ability to monitor and understand that you're actually getting compliance on the software. From the software aspect, we talked about app repositories, and that's been a huge change in the industry in the last decade. So ushered in by the iPhone and the iOS or the Apple App Store, followed by Android and the Google App Store, and now with Windows and their App Store. Distribution through these cloud methods has become the standard. It's not the only way that enterprises distribute software, and so it's not the only way that Workspace ONE locks you in. But if you can utilize the app repository and then wrap these individual applications with policy, it becomes a really advantageous way of pushing software out. Now, one thing I do want to point out is for offices with limited bandwidth, you can also do peer-to-peer distribution, meaning you can push things down to one machine and then it shares out those bits to install to the other machines in the same network. So you do have the ability to optimize that experience and make it a much lighter bandwidth requirement on your individual offices. And just like we talked about with OS updates and desired state, your analytics play a critical part here within the apps. Knowing what users are actually using, knowing how often they're being used, knowing when they crash is a critical part of managing the software. That feedback loop gives you the ability to respond to a buggy version of an application, to maybe look for patches, to help pinpoint what's going on in the environment that is creating a bad user experience for your users. And as we talk about that, that's where support comes in. So one of the things that I love about Workspace ONE UEM is the ability to do proactive remediation. In that regard, what you're basically doing is looking for conditions before they become a problem and before they become a service ticket. And through automation, you push out remediation scripts and you're able to prevent a user from having a problem. One of the ones that I can think of is maybe they're an Outlook user and they're getting close to filling up the maximum size of their OST, their offline or their Outlook cache file. You can remediate that with an easy script before it becomes a problem that opens a ticket. Or maybe it's that buggy application we were talking about that keeps crashing. You can push out a remediation, a patch, because you're getting analytics across your entire fleet. And maybe your PDF editor is having a bad day. Maybe this particular version's not running well. And so you can go ahead and proactively fix that for a number of your employees, as opposed to just waiting and pinpointing based on user feedback. Self-service is a part of the support experience with Workspace ONE. There are ways where you can go into the app portal and pull certain things. Remote reset is a huge part of it as well. So a lost device, making sure that it's secure, being able to blanket and clean it up, those are huge benefits for your life cycle and security. And across the bottom, what you see is security, analytics, and automation. Those are the threads that we talked about in every one of these steps throughout the life cycle. So strong security through policy and through control, with automation and analytics to help enforce that security and demonstrate the fact that you're in that posture. Analytics to let you know what's going on in the environment, and automation to help you do things more efficiently with less human intervention. I was on a call the other day, and someone said, why make a human do it when a robot can do it for you? And that's the core of automation, right? Let's let the robots fix this for us. Let's automate it. And yes, you have to spend some time setting up first, but once that's done, it can scale out and do these things faster and more efficiently than your human staff. So onboarding as the first step, zero touch, self-service, day one, productivity, those are all hugely important things. So across the gambit of operating systems, you've got automatic device enrollment, you've got the ability to do drop shipping. Azure Autopilot is a huge thing. Workspace ONE UEM also integrates and can work with Autopilot. And so when you talk about Apple and Microsoft, they both have the ability from factory to enroll and associate devices with your tenant, with your practice. And so it can get pushed in and be a part of your managed fleet before it even arrives at your end user's home or office. Those features are powerful because you cut down on the manual work required for your operations staff. It also leads to a better day one outcome for your user. So in today's hybrid workforce, where many users aren't ever coming into an office, there's no need for double shipping, imaging, and some of the traditional things that we've had to do around fleet management and device management. When we had to start off with, our custom Windows image with all of our applications, that meant we had to ship it to the office first, and then we had to ship it back. My prior organization was still doing this all throughout COVID. And so being able to do that day one, where we can ship direct from factory to the end user at home and then allow them to onboard, is a much better outcome. It's less costly for us as an organization. It's a better outcome for the user because they get the device faster and they're productive much faster. Now, I love the word metaverse, right? What does it actually mean? It's one of those words that we don't actually have a great definition for, but from Meta or Facebook and others, the metaverse is becoming a thing. This augmented reality, or this place that is existing only within our wearables with AR and VR, that's becoming part of the world that's encroaching on the enterprise. And just like our smartphones did, the wearables and the changing market here is going to affect us as enterprises in the years to come. So being able to be in front of that with a flexible platform where you can do it, if not today, but in the years to come, is a very, very good stance. You won't be behind the curve, you'll be ahead of the curve in terms of being able to handle wearables in the future. Mobile printers, voice assistants, I think of Alexa, things like that. Those are becoming commonplace. And quite possibly the most common, digital signage, interactive kiosks. I'm seeing these all over the place. I know we were running them in the enterprise, just doing digital signboards and welcome and information, even branding in our welcome centers and things of different offices. So making sure that all of these Internet of Things type devices are also managed and configured over the air is really critical, because
these could open a huge doorway from a security perspective on your network. And so when you start talking about smart devices, cameras and kiosks and signage, a lot of times those will kind of fall into the same category as your printers have in the past. They're not well managed, they're not updated, they're not necessarily fully secured. And so, just like printers, we had to learn along the way that you should turn off ports and services that aren't needed. You need to keep firmware up to date. These IoT devices are no different. Gartner's predicting there's going to be about 20 billion IoT devices, and that was in the year 2020. We're now 4 years past that, and I know that the proliferation of IoT devices only is getting stronger and stronger. We're seeing so many physical security vendors between badge readers and cameras and things like that creeping into the enterprise. And so making sure that those are managed and well managed is critical for us moving forward. Resource delivery. We talked a little bit about this, but let's dig a little bit deeper. So policy modernization, you can use data-driven UIs to help you create policies. The concept of baselines and then profile templates get applied to your fleet of inventory for your fleet of endpoints. You can manage and audit those policies, and it's known as a declarative management framework, meaning you go in and you tell it what you want the policy to be. It manages the drift and it forces the enforcement on the endpoint. So it's no longer a matter of having to create a script that's supposed to set the settings through the APIs and through the way that modern management works. It actually enforces that from a MDM type declarative framework. So basically, you no longer have to worry. The system itself is making sure that those settings stay set in the desired state. From an application modernization, you've got your enterprise app repository. Now, this is a little different than what we talked about. We talked about the public app stores, the Windows App Store. We talked about the Apple and Google app stores. Well, an enterprise app repository is the same concept. It's just a private repository that you get to create within Workspace ONE. So for any of those apps that aren't publicly available that you can't wrap with your own policy and deliver from the public, you can also put them in your enterprise repository. And so it involves a little more work on the configuration side, but this gives you a centralized point to be able to push all of the different apps for your organization all through a central user-pleasing interface. In addition to that, intelligent CVE-driven patching, meaning it's going out, it's looking for the common vulnerabilities that are in your environment, helping you to patch based on those CVE notices. It is a huge time saver for organizations that are very security minded. From a patching standpoint, you've got a simplified update catalog. You've got the ability to create smart deployment rings. I will say competitive products often lack on this side of the house. So you have to stagger your updates, and you don't update everything at once to mitigate risk. Well, the smart deployment rings in Workspace ONE UEM gives you that ability to customize and create those deployments on a much more controlled basis. And so that's another way of mitigating risk with the platform because, at the end of the day, you can only handle so many calls and you don't want to break everyone if you've got a bad patch. So being able to test those in smaller controlled groups and then incrementally increase the way that you deploy those is a critical part of good operations within your environment. So from a VMware perspective, they've been talking about apps anywhere. And this slide really kind of underscores the apps anywhere experience that they're trying to drive. So far beyond the applications and productivity tools that you have, Workspace ONE also tries to give a strong company experience to its users. So, what do I mean by that strong company experience? Well, the first is single sign-on, a single identity to kind of drive access to all of the different applications and resources that you have as an organization. That identity management through Workspace ONE is critical because it reduces the friction of getting into corporate resources, whether that may be your SaaS-based HR system or maybe an expense system. It could be your Office 365. It could be a SaaS application you use for your ticket management, say ServiceNow. All of those different applications live in different places, but the single sign-on gives you that frictionless ability to enable your end users no matter where they're at. So that single identity gives them the ability to go and be productive. Self-service is another huge part of that. So through a custom app written for Workspace ONE, you're able to deliver the ability to do functions on their own. Users are able to request things from an app store. They're able to do things very similarly to what they get in their iPhone or Android experience at home. Remote support's important. Sometimes a picture's worth 1,000 words, as the saying goes. So being able to see what's going on the user's device, walking them through from a support experience can save a lot of time. And so across all the same form factors and operating systems, you're able to offer remote support to your users. Experience workflows, well, that's another thing. So just think about a workflow, of any kind. You're able to go in and request a physical device, a keyboard or a mouse or things that go along with your IT. You can handle those through the same application, and then they integrate with your backend systems so that you get that unified experience. With hybrid work, I will say it's easy to get disconnected or feel disconnected from your company. So having the ability to disseminate notices and updates and communications from both your IT and HR is a big helpful point. If you have ongoing outage of an application, maybe you're having some downtime with one of your SaaS or internal applications, being able to put that out there so that it doesn't turn into thousands of tickets is a very proactive way of handling the situation. Being able to talk about things like your annual enrollment and other critical things that affect all your employees is also important. But also in the hybrid work environment, not knowing who people are, not being able to have a place to go and discover who you work with is a huge problem too. How do you know what coworkers handle what, or what offices and who reports, to different offices or to different folks. So people search within Workspace ONE is also another huge part of the user experience. So all of these things come together under an application called the Intelligent Hub. That's part of Workspace ONE digital workspace experience for the end user. So everything we talked about here is part of Intelligent Hub. So in terms of test first approach instead of publish first, we have the ability to control updates in Workspace ONE on a much more granular level. I mentioned this a couple slides ago, but you have the ability to workflow these updates. So it gives you the ability to go out, create a patch or choose a patch. You can put it into a deferral method. You can make it have an approval by a group, or you can manually approve it, and then basically test that before you end up massively rolling it out to the organization. So we did this, at past organizations using SCCM, but it took some doing. We had to create groups of the test environment or the test users. We had to really come up with our own process around it. And we had the framework, but there wasn't a workflow created for us that helped us do this kind of control with our updates. We had to manually think about this and plan it. With Workspace ONE, this is part of the out-of-the-box capabilities for the platform. So when we start talking about OS patch management, you can benefit from the ability to test and defer and target those patches in a very granular way. SCCM, as I keep referring back, or as I keep comparing to, one of the problems we had there was every week there were new patches coming out. And so my test group might have gotten one set of patches, and the next week there may be a different set of patches going into production. And that was far from ideal. And it caused downtime from time to time because something creeps in over the course of your 4-week patch cycle. And yeah, it's inevitable that you have something break. So being able to control exactly what you want, when you want it on the endpoints is a huge step forward in terms of targeting and testing. So let's talk a little bit about modern management benefits versus the traditional PC lifecycle management. Traditional is high touch. When we talk about imaging, you touch every machine, you put in a disk or a Pixie boot, you pull down the image. It only works for a configuration on network, so on your corporate network. Your patching cycles can take months because maybe it doesn't hit, or maybe the machine's offline, or shut down when the patch is supposed to be scheduled. Your app management's more intensive. Excuse me. And from a security perspective, a lot of the security rules are set one time and never actually tested or enforced. On a modern management, you've got a better out-of-the-box day one experience because it's using modern API-based configuration methods. You go in with the Workspace ONE client. It pulls all of the settings down across the air. So from any network, at home, at a corporate office, it doesn't matter. All of the compliance and rules come down within minutes. And because you're leveraging that cloud, you have the ability to scale without any CapEx. So you don't have to manage distribution points. You don't have to manage expensive servers and licenses across your enterprise. And the last thing, because of the analytics, you've got real-time detection and remediation with modern management. So a lot of benefits moving to the modern approach. So from a cloud scale distribution, you've got content delivery networks and peer-to-peer both helping you. So content delivery networks help you across the broad cloud-based delivery. So if you've got a large distributed workforce across the United States or across the world, the cloud delivery network is going to automatically replicate your data out for speed and delivery. And because you're basing a lot of this on public app stores, you already have the benefit of a CDN within those app stores to help you from a distribution. But if you do have individual offices with limited bandwidth, you can also use peer-to-peer technology between the Workspace ONE clients in your office to be able to replicate the software. And this saves time from a downloading perspective, as well as from a delivery and installation perspective. Peer distribution. Here you can see some of the different options on a Windows 10 machine. You can enable or disable it. You can have different groups, and there's smart assignment without any complex configuration. This is also proxy aware. So if you are using traditional proxies, you can also use this technology along with your proxy servers. So at this point, I'm going to pause for just a moment, take a quick break, let everyone take a bio break, grab some coffee, grab some water, and we'll be back here in 5 minutes. It looks like it is 11:52 on Eastern time. So let's say we'll be back here at 11:55 Eastern. If you've got questions, please do drop them into the chat or the Q&A, and we'll be back after just a brief break. All right. Hope everyone had a nice quick break. Let's dig in a little bit more. Let's talk about the architecture for Workspace ONE UEM. How do I say this? It's pretty doggone simple. And that's because Workspace ONE UEM is a SaaS service. There is the ability to do on-prem, but by and large, most customers choose to use Workspace ONE UEM as a SaaS service. And so all of your users and devices check into your SaaS. It's provisioned by VMware, and so it uses their cloud services. From an on-premises standpoint, to support UEM, you do use the AirWatch cloud connectors or the Workspace ONE UEM cloud connectors. And those are virtual appliances that get installed in your on-prem environment and really just facilitate the ability to talk to your Active Directory domain controllers. So from a cloud architecture standpoint, it's pretty simple and very straightforward. One of the great things that you'll see here is that these cloud connectors install on-prem. They talk on an outgoing network basis. They do not require incoming networking ports. And again, their entire role is really to facilitate communication to your on-prem network. As I mentioned, you do have the ability to do on-prem architecture. This is a simplified view. For any of these applications, you can do scale out for resiliency and redundancy. But basically, you have a DMZ with your UEM device services, virtual machine sitting out there. Again, you can scale this out. Your cloud connector sits on the network. It talks from the internal network out to the device services. And then you have your UEM admin console sitting on the internal network. Both the device services and the UEM admin console share a SQL database. And so you see that connection back to an internal SQL server database. As I mentioned, you can scale this out. This is a simplified diagram. It does support high availability and the ability to scale out within an on-prem architecture. But relatively few components, and it does support both methods of operation. One thing you're not seeing here that's often part of this as well is Workspace ONE Access. And so we mentioned it as one of the products inside of the EUC business unit. But Workspace ONE Access is your identity management. So it can work in conjunction with your Azure Active Directory or other identity management platforms like Okta, Ping. But Workspace ONE Access is usually part of the deployment as well. It's not shown here on screen. But from an identity management standpoint, it's usually one of the places that you also will integrate because you have certain components that will need to link to that identity. As we talked about earlier, identity is a cornerstone of the overall strategy here with single sign-on and making it a frictionless experience for your users. Now, I know that was quick on the architecture. I'll pause there. Are there any questions? Feel free to drop them in chat or the Q&A. Having both a on-prem architecture and a cloud architecture buys you the ability of choice. You have the ability, if you are in a more compliant or cloud adverse environment, you can do this on-prem. Most users, because of the nature of what we're trying to do with modern management, do choose to go the SaaS route and let VMware host this. That was the case even pre-acquisition. So on this slide, you see we call them AirWatch Cloud Connectors, and that's because before Workspace ONE was a VMware product, AirWatch was the company that first invented this technology. And so AirWatch was born in that cloud native space as a SaaS platform. So you had the choice even back then of doing on-prem or SaaS, but many customers have chosen to go cloud native. All right, let's roll forward to the Workspace ONE applications. So the applications are a critical part of Workspace ONE because not everything necessarily is delivered as another application. So we've talked about one of the applications already, and that's Intelligent Hub. So Intelligent Hub is an app developed by Workspace ONE that gives you that very customized user experience. So it starts with a For You tab, it has an Apps tab, and it has the ability for you to create a very customized user experience for your end users. So that people search, the ability to launch and load apps, all from a centralized point is really, really helpful. So when we talk about VMware's Horizon, their virtual apps and desktop platform, you can deliver those same Horizon apps here within the same interface. So through Intelligent Hub, you get both installable apps as well as the virtualized apps and desktops that you publish to your users. In addition to that, you can also publish SaaS apps. So on the screenshot here, you see Athena benefits. This may be, or the benefits from Fidelity 401k. This may be your company's SaaS platform for your HR. And so you can link that with SSO and with single sign-on, and then also link them here from the App Store so that Intelligent Hub becomes that one-stop shop, not just for the applications and things you're linking, but also for information, for notices, and for the ability to search and find out more information about your organization. Intelligent Hub is a consistent workspace beyond day zero. So we talked about things that you can do with Intelligent Hub, but let's dig in a little bit more. So you've got priority action items that can be sent out and sent for workflow. We talked about workflows. There's an example here on the bottom of the first screenshot. Submit a photo for the company address book. This is non-negotiable. This is Andy policy number one. We have to have photos so that we as a distributed organization can know each other and know what someone looks like. That's the first layer of connectivity, right? Is knowing what the person on the other end actually looks like. So when we get together in person, we're not going, I don't know that person. We should already have a good idea who they are because we've seen photos of them in our different applications here at work. So you can build workflows for day one activities like submitting photos and other HR type related things. You can also do news and recaps like the middle Explore tab. You can do company wins and other presentations and push those things out. You can have priority actions, related to certifications and compliance. We had to go through a SOX compliance recently. And so there's a number of different things that require different stakeholders' activities. And so being able to workflow and push those out is also a powerful thing. And most importantly, sometimes is finding help. And so Workspace ONE has the ability to put, helpful resources, a knowledge base. You can see your different applications, your different devices that are currently linked to your account. And then there's a virtual assistant here as well, where you can chat and it can offer different paths to support. Again, without tying up a person, because this is an AI type assistant. And I will say light AI. This is not Chat GPT level AI. But it's that augmented support experience where you don't necessarily have to have a person tied up for every activity. And you can suggest, oh, well, maybe we should open a ticket, or maybe you should go to the order a device workflow or register a device workflow. And so sometimes those will give you solutions for common problems that then don't need to tie up your support staff, offering you much larger scale on the support side of the organization. Now, we talked a little bit about Workspace ONE versus Intelligent, or we talked a little bit about Workspace ONE. And so this is a comparison of Workspace ONE Access and Intelligent Hub. Workspace ONE Access is that identity integration to an external IDP, or you can use it as your identity manager. So if you don't have an Okta or a Ping or an Azure AD, but you want the richness and the goodness we're talking about, well, Workspace ONE Access can integrate with your on-prem AD and give you that same level of identity management, or it can integrate with an external identity manager. Workspace ONE Access is going to surface your Horizon or your Citrix app catalog. So anything published in Horizon can be shown in Workspace ONE and access and also launched from there. Um, Little known fact is Workspace ONE Access can also integrate with Citrix. So you can publish Citrix apps through Workspace ONE Access and launch those from there. And you can also publish SaaS applications. So like we were talking about with your benefits or your ServiceNow instance, as long as it's tied with an SSO, you can publish those SaaS apps. Now, Intelligent Hub takes everything Workspace ONE Access does and extends it. So you've got the ability to now also do native app store integrations. So you can do native app installation on iOS, Android, and Windows. You've got the people portion, searching for people in your organization. And you've also got the support and chat, the assistant capabilities. So this is a common point of confusion for organizations. Do I need access or do I need Intelligent Hub? They seem very similar. What's the difference? So that's why I wanted to pull this out. Intelligent Hub wraps everything Workspace ONE Access does, plus then additional things. So if you're on Workspace ONE UEM and you're rolling out and want the full featured, Intelligent Hub is the way to go. And so hopefully this makes sense in terms of clearing up any confusion between the two. So it's pretty common for email to go into the Microsoft Outlook app. And so if you're an M365 shop, you may want to deploy the Outlook app onto your endpoints and use that. But not everyone is in that camp. You may have another third-party email system. You may have on-prem Exchange, and you may not want to open it to the outside world with ActiveSync or other things. And so Workspace ONE UEM also has the capability of delivering emails securely using their own internal application called Boxer. Boxer has the ability to do mail, calendar, some file sharing, all of that securely delivered through Workspace ONE UEM. There are some additional components that get deployed during that from an architecture standpoint. But Boxer is a capability that you get with Workspace ONE UEM for secure email. You also have a secure browser, and this is a topic we talk more and more about from a XenTegra perspective. But the secure browser lets you publish intranet type web applications to your audience. So it helps with that secure private access without a VPN endpoint on the endpoint. You're able to securely provide access to internal applications as well as policy control that browser. We have another product in our portfolio that we talk about with users, and one of the critical things is, compared to Safari, compared to Chrome, compared to Microsoft Edge, a secure browser is going to remove all of the ad tracking, all of the cookies, all of the things that these other applications, these other browsers do to track you and to be able to target ads to you, because those Chrome in particular, Edge in particular, they track a lot of your activity so that they can target ads and get ad revenue to keep these applications as free applications. So your secure browser removes that and gives you more policy control over how and what you expose to your end users. Content is the last app I want to cover. Content is exactly what you would think. It's going to be all of your apps. And so I know it's pretty common now with the M365 suite for you to use Excel and Word and PowerPoint to access your apps or OneDrive, but not every customer's there. And so content is another secure way to access data on file shares and internal resources and securely deliver corporate data to your users. Now, recently, over the last, I would say, year or so, um, there have been some enhancements. Actually, I would say maybe over the last couple years. COVID, changed a lot in the way that we work, in the way that people work from home, and so there are a few additional enhancement for frontline workers. What do we mean for frontline workers? Well, that could be your healthcare staff, your nursing, your doctors. It could be your delivery personnel if you're an Amazon or a FedEx or a UPS. It could be your drivers. Launcher is one of those new tools. It is a um, branded experience for your inline users. So if you had certain applications and things that you wanted to be able to deliver with the ability to, customize an HTML5 experience just for those frontline workers, this is a way of getting that in front of them. Could be possibly part of their scheduling. It could be, their next pickup or their next drop off. It gives you the ability to create modern HTML based interfaces for those frontline workers. For shift based workers, this is another big concern, adhering to employee hours and overtime labor laws, particularly in certain geographies, certain states within the United States. This is a big deal. So being able to lock these devices down so that they can only access things during fixed hours and shifts is also important, so that you're in compliance for any of the local laws that you may be accustomed to. From a remote support standpoint, one of the ones that I like best is the ability to do integration with ServiceNow. And so from Workspace ONE, you're able to put all of the tools that you have access to, along with all of the data linked to an individual, into the ServiceNow system. So when a user opens a ticket, you can see which devices they have. You can choose the device that they are using. You can launch a remote support. You can go in and look at analytics. And so it streamlines that support experience through the strong integration with ServiceNow. The support person never has to leave the ServiceNow ticket to be able to launch a remote support and do advanced controls. And best of all, it is truly cross-platform. So I've seen this work on all the mobile devices along with your traditional Windows and Mac, but also inside of your Horizon VDI. So if that user is a VDI user, maybe they're a contractor in Asia, you're able to support them in the same way. So very, very repeatable, repeatable activities, very easy to learn. Now, pause here for just a quick second. Apologies, I've been fighting a cold. Um, so resource types. So what are resource types? In terms of Workspace ONE UEM, this is the way that you can deploy things. Resource types doesn't actually mean a lot to me, so let's dig in here. First is you have the ability to do native app store integration. So we've talked about this several times, but this would be your off-the-shelf application. So it could be Boxer, it could be Content Locker, could be your secure browser. It could also be your M365 applications, Outlook, PowerPoint, and Word. It could also be something that is a publicly accessible application. So you integrate natively with the App Store, building things into your own app catalog. And then that's where you start to build your own unified app catalog. So in addition to those native app stores, you can also fetch things from your IDM. So in this case, Workspace ONE Access integration. And so everything that's published for Horizon, Citrix, or SaaS applications inside of Workspace ONE Access also gets pulled in into your centralized app catalog. And so there are layers here. I guess that's the point to take away from this. There are layers and different integration points, but from a user experience standpoint, we come back to everything being in a centralized app catalog, like we see here in the favorites tab, or like we see here on the right in the apps, so that no matter the type of application, you have access to everything from a single location. Let's move into content integration. So as I mentioned, not everyone's using M365. And even if you are, what does that look like, right? So UEM can integrate directly with your M365. Your devices can talk directly with it. But UEM can do PowerShell commands to help you with administration. And so all your email traffic would go directly from the device back to the M365 or O365 cloud. But like I said, not everyone's doing that. So what you can do is also deploy what's known as a unified access gateway. If you're a Horizon customer, you've heard that before. This is a secure appliance that sits in your DMZ. It is a hardened Linux appliance, and it basically allows secure access for services into your internal network. And so if you want to use Boxer and if you want to have secure email, excuse me, delivered through Workspace ONE, the UAG gets installed into your DMZ. You connect to your mobile email front-end server, which is part of Workspace ONE UEM, and then it talks to your back-end email server. This allows you to use the Boxer application for secure delivery and for secure communication to your email systems. In the same way, the content gateway works in a very, very similar fashion. You've got your Workspace ONE UEM database. You have the ability to sync with what's known as a content gateway. And then you're able to deploy content to devices based on the Workspace ONE content app. Not really an architectural design. So let's bump forward to this. And once again, you've got the UAG, the Unified Access Gateway, sitting in the DMZ. And there is the ability to do a double hop if you want a more secure environment, so a SaaS cascade model. But the UAG becomes a tunnel interface. And so that will allow you access to certain internal resources, including the content. So this tunnel is the per app VPN, the tunnel proxy, content gateway, all of those different functions all live within the UAG and allow access into the internal network for all of your secure resources like internal SharePoint, wiki, intranet sites, web applications, anything along those lines. And our last section before we launch into lab time, licensing and packages. So of everything we've looked at, everything's been simple, simple, simple. Two things. There's a lot of different licensing packages. There's a lot of different ways that you can license Workspace ONE UEM. The thing I will tell you is this is a good thing for the most part because you have choice in how you procure based on what you want to do. Do you want to do just mobile device management? Do you want to just do desktop management? Or do you want to be more all-inclusive and try to do everything, including the intelligence and the ability to look at user experience and analytics at a very deep level? And so this chart's not all-inclusive. I've tried to bullet down here, but there is a more all-inclusive chart on the VMware website. I've got a link to that here at the bottom. I've got a bit.ly where you can go to get the full details. But across the board, what you see is flexibility. And the other thing I will add is, with the VMware Broadcom merger, you're probably hearing all of these crazy things about packaging and price increases. What's not happening is we're not seeing any changes, at least so far, with the EUC packages or the offerings and pricing. Everything has been the same with our EUC folks. So Workspace ONE and Horizon has not changed. This is still, the same as it was pre-acquisition. We have no insight of if it will change in the future, but for now it is stable with no changes, on the horizons for us. We talked about Intelligent Hub, Workspace ONE Access, the secure email, reports. That's included in all the packages. VMware Tunnel was included in all but the standard edition. Your MDM is in the mobile device and the UEM essentials. You have modern desktop across multiple packages. So across the board, you've got lots of different features here. And unfortunately, there's more, and I don't really have enough time to kind of go into it, but we'll talk real briefly about a couple of things. So fourth line down is Freestyle Orchestrator. We talked a lot about automation. So Freestyle Orchestrator is going to give you a UI, a tool to be able to go through and create those automations that users can then invoke inside of Workspace ONE. That's going to give you the ability to do the self-service things we talked about. And so some of these are enabling technologies that then let you go and kind of build based on your ideas. There's the ability to continue to expand and build further based on the framework and tools that are delivered here in the package. One thing I will note for you is that remote assist feature is an add-on across all the different packages at this point. So if you do want that remote control, it is not included by default, but it is a small add-on per user across it. The mobile threat defense is another interesting piece. This is a integration with Carbon Black. And so the mobile threat defense uses the Carbon Black security engines. So that may be subject to change in the future because we know there are some changes with Carbon Black that are certainly on the horizon. And with that, that brings us up to lab time. So I am here and available if you have any trouble getting into the lab. But there's a link in your email, and I'll be monitoring the chat and QA. And in the meantime, I do want to say thank you for joining today. And we really appreciate the time that you spent with us here. If there are questions, I am here to ask or just ask and I'll answer, and we'll go from there. But thank you again for your time, and we will see you at the next workshop.